Good afternoon, folks, ladies and gentlemen, chaps and chapesses. Oh, do we have one for you today? This is gravy all the way. So, I would suggest pause the video, get yourself a beverage, get a pen and paper, because you're going to want to take notes on this. Now, I'm condensing the work of an American guy, a black guy. Guy's a genius. Guy has come across all this while he's been doing his battles with the child support agencies over there. And apparently, from what he's saying, he was doing all this 10 years ago. So to him, this is old news. But of course, now we have no-hide raised its head. We are a bit aware about the no-hide. We're aware that there's problems with the bonds, the bond markets. There's been some shenanigans going around there. And of course, people are still desperate to understand why they are entrapped in this slave system. This little ditty is going to give you all the answers you need. It's going to support the information I've presented about the no-hide system being a completely different system than the one we have under Rome. And it's basically going to give you the method of halting all corporate encroachment from any angle that they may come from hitting your good self, your children, etc. It's not going to be a magical system whereby you can sit on your ass and watch. You're going to have to take this seriously and start to use it, and use it in all methods in which you are being entrapped without your full knowledge and therefore full disclosure of the fact, by a system that has mimicked, that word again, that is mimicking our existent system in order it can get itself installed before the cat gets out of the bag, as it were. Well, the cat is out of the bag, ladies and gentlemen. So, without further ado, let us begin. So, we're going to bring you to the full disclosure of a thing called the Municipal Securities Disclosure. Okay. Now, we're taking this from America, but this works everywhere because everything is now registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. However, through this new system, the SEC's sidelined, so the regulations that it enforces, it can no longer enforce against this new system. So what this is, if we want to look at it, is the private side of the credit system that's being installed, the hidden, the bit they don't want you to know. And the reason they don't want you to know this is because once you start to understand this, you have the weaponry to kill it every time it comes anywhere near you. That's how important this is. I would also suggest anybody that's in contact with the Venetian that you send him a copy of this, because just reading his latest move to get Matt Hancock arrested, should it fail with the PPP, public prosecution, whatever these idiots are, this would also be the method to undermine any power this person may have in relation to thwarting the man's efforts. So there you go. Right, it's classed 17 CFR 240.15C2-12, the Municipal Securities Disclosure. Okay. Preliminary note. For a discussion of disclosure obligations relating to municipal securities, issuers, brokers and dealers and municipal securities dealers should refer to Securities Act Release number 7049. Securities Exchange Act number 33741, FR-42, March the 9th, 1994. So that's the Securities Act Release you have to look at for a discussion on the disclosures and obligations. okay, relating to municipal securities. For a discussion of the obligations and underwriters to have a reasonable basis for recommending municipal securities, brokers, dealers and municipal securities dealers should refer to Securities Exchange Act release number 26100 from September the 22nd, 1988 and Securities Exchange Act release number 26985 June 28th, 1989. So a lot of this is under the auspices of Reagan. So for those who are well versed with the politics of Reagan, this video will also help you better understand what Reagan was doing. Under command of Daddy George Bush, if you remember, who was Mr. CIA. So this is the Central Intelligence Agency operating for the Federal Reserve System to mimic first our existing bonds capital system, mimicking it in order it could become it without people realizing. It's very important that we understand this. So what we're leading to here with this is to understand something called a certificate of participation. Okay, it's exactly what it says it is. It's a certificate to show all concerned have agreed to participate in this new system. Now, the mimic. It pretends to be a bond instrument. It is not a bond. It takes the place of a bond. So it's mimicking because they don't disclose the fact. And the difference between the bond and this system is a bond is regulated. It's regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. This certificate of participation system is unregulated. It has no limits. Now it's abbreviated COP. So certificate of participation we will now abbreviate as COP. So it says a COP is a tax-exempt lease financing agreement. A tax-exempt, so there's no tax payable on this instrument. And it's an agreement. So it's a tax-exempt lease financing agreement that's sold to investors. Okay? So it's an instrument that pretends to be a bond that isn't a bond. It has no limitations, so no regulation, and it is sold to investors. Okay, so people are investing in this system. A bond is a security, so hence regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay, so the exchange of securities is regulated by the SEC. And a bond is the method by which the SEC can regulate financial actions, transactions, etc. A promissory note is also a security. Okay, so a promissory note and a bond are classed as securities. Okay, now a court, not a court of law, a court of policy, which is admiralty, which is maritime. Okay, not common law. Nothing to do with common law. This is entirely a financial system operated by the central banks, and of course the Bar Association are bankers' authorised representatives. Okay, so the Bar Association is the tie to this new system, the admiralty, the maritime, which keeps you out of the common law. Which is why it's important, in the last video I put out, that people from this get-go start to look closely at all these players pushing the common law. Alright, it's important because it's powerful. They know it's powerful, and if you guys out there start to understand and use this, they're in trouble. Now, what I'm bringing to you now is not common law. Okay, so get that into your minds now. This is not common law. I'm making that very clear. This is entering their system and understanding what's in the private, not in the public, so you're not meant to know. This is what's in the private in relation to how this system is working, and thus offers us the remedy, okay? Because full disclosure is not being made. So we want disclosure. So there are certain things that we are going to demand from any two-bit asswipe that comes at you from this system. Okay, that's what this video is going to achieve. So it's important, you know, pause this video now, get a beverage, get your pen and paper so you can take notes. Because this, so while they're all focused to common law, we can come with this. A court is a municipal securities dealer. Right? So that's what your courts under Admiralty and Maritime are. The dealers in securities. Right? So everything that is accepted and run and regulated by the SEC, for that system, the courts are the dealers of those securities. Now, this is where this play is shifting. And important, what we are now seeing is the grammar I've created and given to you in relation to Roman system, which we want, we like, we love because it's Christian, and this new system, which is the Noahide system. So no matter what they rally and fancy it up in the garbage, because I know most of you are not going to be interested in reading the 300 and odd sub-laws to the Noahide platform, which gives you the grammar and really meaning to the 7. This is the financial grammar to show you why they need it, to shift it out of what is into this new one, because it'll give them full command as your slave traders, your slavers. Remember, people, the slave trade is full of those that would claim to be Jewish. The traders, the shipping, the plantations, all connected to this system. Okay, Trump has handed it over. He's handed it over. Now what they're doing with the Trump-Biden game is fixing it in your minds that Trump supporters will back Trump without listening to anything, as they've already got the left and Antifa in that position now, and have been so since the entire 4-year term of Donald Trump so far. We know he's out, but he is now, I'm content to say to you, he has fulfilled his mission as King Cyrus by emancipating the priesthood through the Abraham Accords. They are pushing the Noahide across America. He has put the American economy into so much debt, it's frightening. So he's fulfilled his mission. Now they're setting up the divide in America by making it look like Biden has took it from Trump as opposed to winning it fairly. That's the situation we have. So Trump has to play up this, forget it, guys, it's nonsense. Biden's in, the communists are in, that's the way it's going to go. The next move will be here in the UK to get the Boris and his idiots out and get in the bigger idiot under Starmer, a staunch Fabian communist, and a Sir, a hoity-toity, is a knight for the Bar Association. Okay, this is the new system they have to implement. This is what the reset's all about. You're all getting the 30 pieces of silver, fixing you into this new system of credit. So important that we start to grasp this. This is going to be the remedy, folks, but it's not going to be, you're going to have to act and use it if you want it to actually serve you, okay? Okay, so in describing the Municipal Securities Disclosure, it comes with A and B to further expand its power. It says A, general. As a means reasonably designed to prevent fraudulent, deceptive or manipulative acts or practices, it shall be unlawful for any broker, dealer or municipal securities dealer, the courts, the judges, or rather the courts are the dealers, And then in brackets, a participating underwriter, that's the judge. So the judges, the magistrates, are the underwriters, okay? So courts are the municipal dealers, and the judges and magistrates are the underwriters to this system. So I'll just give you that again. It says, it shall be unlawful for any broker, dealer or municipal securities dealer, brackets, a participating underwriter, when used in connection with an offering, close brackets, to act as an underwriter in a primary offering of municipal securities with an aggregate principal amount of 1 million or more, that's an offering, unless the participating underwriter complies with the requirements of this section or is exempted from the provisions of this section. Now, B, under requirements, prior to the time the participating underwriter bids for, purchases, offers or sells municipal securities in an offering, the participating underwriter shall obtain and review an official statement that an issuer of such securities deems final as of its date, except for the omission of no more than the following information. So it cannot omit the offering prices, the interest rates, selling compensation, aggregate principal amount per maturity, delivery dates, any other terms or provisions required by an issuer of such securities to be specified in a competitive bid, ratings, other terms of the securities depending on such matters, and the identity of the underwriters. So that's explaining municipal securities disclosure, how it works. So that's basically operating with the bonds. So but there's a shift into this new system, as we are going to see. The definition of certificate of participation by Merriam-Webster. So here we're into the legal dictionaries. So it says, so we're defining the certificate of participation. A certificate issued by some forms of investment trust, evidencing a proportionate equitable interest of the holder in securities held by the issuing concern. So we're dealing with trusts here. These operators are operating as a trust format. So the trustees then become the courts, the banks, the judges, and when it comes to your children, the schools. So all these corporate operations now that have took over our civil services are operating in this garbage, no-hide credit system. Because that's what it is. It's a shift off bond and into pure credit. Okay. The second definition is a certificate of membership in a pension plan issued by the trustee who holds the policies. Can you see how this is nothing to do with law, even though they use the term? It's contract law that they're speaking of. Because there we can see again, a certificate of participation and the system it represents is a policy as issued by the insuring company. So it's the insurance companies, okay, that are underwriting the policies and all such pension plan, etc. All these big systems, it's sort of underwritten by insurance. Now, let's just have a look at my notes. So a court is a municipal securities dealer. So they're the dealers in securities, and we've seen that the bond is a security and a promissory note is a security. Okay. The credit system that they're putting in isn't. That's the difference. So a court is a municipal securities dealer and carries out business with all the liens, bonds, etc. put against your legal persona, your legal person, the trust set up around that. And of course, they're acting in the role of trustees. Yeah? In all this system. And the birth certificate, as we've gone through, because it has the surname, is the instrument that gives them their claim of right to this nonsense. Okay, that's the foundation, and it's the fact that you've offered up security against your Christian name, your original title form that the state then recognises your arrival and tie to the land and all the rights thereof. So in England, that is the common law of England. That is what that original title is showing you have all the rights for, and that the state is recognising that. Okay, so it is important. Now, like all, when you get into the way they set up the dead trust from 1666, it's very simple that you will be presumed dead until you produce life. Yeah. Now, I'm looking at a lot of these common law players at the moment. They're not recognising this format, and thus are not recognising that a lot of this common law is in relation to a man, not person. All right? Even the term free man, as I used to say to John, is a legal term put before man. Yeah, everything's about taking you off your rights as a man, for which you then need to understand the law for that realm, which is the Bible. Like it or not, that's the realm and the laws that show you how to be a man. That's the way it is. That's why they have to get rid of the biblical Torah, the New Testament, and put it into this garbage system that's pretty much run by the Kabbalah, the Zohar, and the Talmud, which is sort of the bureaucratic doctrines that will determine how the Noahide laws are pushed out. And as I've said, if you don't study the 325 laws, don't stand there and tell me that you think it's amazing and fantastic, just because the way they're presenting it is meant to look like that. Get into them 300 odd laws, then you'll see what this new system is and why. Though they claim it to be of the Torah, it isn't. If it was of the Torah, we'd continue with 10 commandments, not 7. That's 3 less. Power doesn't give away commandments, it adds to them. Yeah? So they've given you 7, taken away from what exists already, because the real power of it is in the 300 odd sub-laws. Get that into your minds, people. You know, if you're fussing around with that, you shouldn't be re-watching these videos. You should be watching Mickey Mouse and Pornhub, because Disney now wants Pornhub, remember. Okay. My apologies for my little rant there. Now, all municipal actors, so that's your council, that's your police, all those tied to the stakeholder committee, to which the mayor and the police commissioners do answer. Okay, they're the middlemen between the stakeholder committee, which operates for the banks, and you through your council, which they have held tight, securing the debt and the liabilities of this system while all the profits are moved off into these investors. Yeah, the dealers of this new platform. So the municipal actors are purchasing liens, etc., against your surname, your legal persona on the birth certificate, and of course they're traded then on the stock market. Have you signed in to participate in this machine? Yes, you have. If you split up with the father of your children and go to the child support agency, or whatever the hell it's called, CSA, when you're signing in there, young ladies, what you don't realise is you are abandoning all rights to your children and handing them over as wards of the state. Yeah? Social workers, that's their job, to procure that property, your children, from you by abandonment, Because when you're signing this stuff, you are signing abandonment, which is why the family courts and and all the social workers and solicitors are operating against you. You've given him to him as a ward estate. The food banks, they're going to become very dangerous soon, run by the evangelicals, the satanic pretenders to be Christians. You know, down the line, you'll get 3 handouts, then you'll have to sign intervention orders on your third. And that intervention order will be that you can, basically, you've opened up for intervention. You'll get your 3rd handout, you won't get another, because they'll then class you as unfit to look after your offspring and will intervene and take them away. Every time you enter contract with this system, you're taking all your money now, you're getting your 25 grand, blah, 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 you bounce back loans. I mean, are you really so mesmerised by this fiat system that you are pulled more by that than to actually understand your position when you're entering into this stuff? You're entering into this system of credit. It might be good and fantastic now, but remember, they can switch it off at any time. Ding! Like that. You can't switch a button off when everybody's holding cash and gold and silver and property and land, etc. You can't just switch off a button. But when you've got all that tied in to this electronic system, it doesn't matter if you're a multi-billionaire. If you don't like it tomorrow, they'll switch off. You don't have nothing. You don't have access to anything that you thought you owned. Unless you have it in a trust. Unregistered, of course. You don't want to be paying taxes. You don't want to be audited. You want the parasites out of your capital. Okay, now we'll go to another expansion on the meaning of a participation certificate. A PC it's called here. Also known as a certificate of participation, which is the one we've been using, an abbreviated COP. It says, a participation certificate PC, also known as a certificate of participation, is a financial instrument. Okay? So this system, this COP is a financial instrument. A form of financing used by municipal or government entities which allows an individual to buy a share of the lease revenue. Lease revenue. Right, can you see? They're encouraging you to lease your cars, everything. First, they had to get you from off ownership to keeper. Now they're just going to lease. That's what they're going. So this new system is all about lease revenue. Okay? Not actual, and not even written bonds and promissory notes, which are securities. Yeah? This isn't that, but it's mimicking it, pretending to be, just to blind you. Which is why nothing on paper is going to be worth anything, because of this new system. It is different from a bond issued by these agencies, since participation certificates are secured by lease revenues. Okay, so they're scooping up all property and then leasing it back to you under a credit system, which is tied into Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, COVID-19 with this track and trace, vaccine, immunity therapy. That's what's next. It's not just a vaccine, it's a consistent patient care plan. Yeah, it is not just about the vaccine. It goes on and it moves then into antibody therapy, So you get the vaccine, the first vaccine, which is a 2-shot. Then they have another one after 7 months, is what I'm finding. But then you move into what they call antibody therapy. Now, they're pushing this now because by 2030, sustainable development has to have been achieved, which is mass cull of population. So enter this with the test and trace, then the vaccine, then the antibody therapy. The intention is that you're dead by 2030 after they've made a huge amount out of you in the medical plans for you. So that's where you're going and heading with this nonsense, okay? Municipal and government entities use this instrument to circumvent restrictions that might exist on the amount of debt in other forms they're able to take on. So, whereas the Securities and Exchange Commission regulates bonds and promissory notes, this system isn't regulated in that, which means that they can decide at any point, any time that if they're running out of money, they can decide you owe more money on this system because it's not being regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Are you digging? Participation certificates are also a new form of credit instruments whereby banks can raise funds from other banks and other central bank approved financial institutions to ease liquidity. Digital dollar. We've done a video on the digital dollar, okay, which basically gives the Fed ownership of all the credit notes, all the lease revenue stuff, and then give it back to banks, but it's not the banks themselves, it's on lease from, which then comes to you. It's like the bounce back loans now. The banks give it you, the government gives it the banks. The banks are now controlled by the government, which is bankrupt, is controlled by the banks. Admiralty Maritime, Board Association, Crown Temple, not Office of Monarch, English Crown, British Empire, mimic of England, English Crown, English Kingdom, monarchical system, constitution. England was born from Rome, the Church. Yep. If you're going to carry on with this I'm pushing constitution and you're not going to accept that as fact, then you have an agenda. You have an agenda that you're keeping hidden. That's a fact. Okay, so I'm watching and I'm taking note. You need to be aware of that. Because if I see you as bad, I'll throw you out as bad. That's where you're at while you play the English Constitution. Don't play with it, because I'll have you. It's as simple as that. In this case, banks have the option to share their credit assets with other banks by issuing participation certificates. So we're dealing in credit. We're not dealing in even real money. We're not even dealing in fiat money. We're dealing in credit assets with other banks by issuing participation certificates. With this participation approach, banks and financial institutions come together either on risk-sharing or a non-risk-sharing basis, while providing short-term funds. Participation certificates can also be used to reduce risk. The rate at which these certificates can be issued will be negotiable depending on the interest rate scenario. Okay, so this is it's just a completely new system of slavery, people. It really, really is. So in essence, they're moving you from a bond slave, which they threw bonds and liens against your title, or the trust, and turning you into a credit slave, which is based on the lease revenue format. Now, when something is leased, it becomes a commodity. You know, each time you move with this, what are you doing? You're turning your children into a commodity. When you contract with it, you've turned yourself into a commodity. Yeah. As I've said, when you move with child support, you're involving the trustees, the courts. You've abandoned your children. Yeah, you know, it's like anything, isn't it? If you are grown up enough to copulate, good test before you throw your seed around everywhere if you're not prepared to take responsibility. And that will be, ask yourself, do you want children with this woman? And vice versa to the women, do you want children with this man? Before you copulate, because sometimes flea bags come. And if you're not prepared to take care of that flea bag, I don't care who you are, I don't care what situation, blah, blah, blah. Who are you? What kind of a creature are you if you cannot take care of your offspring? Because they will. This lot will. Oh, they're making a fortune out of it. They will. And every time you enter this system, you're getting closer and closer to them removing them from you. That has to be understood by boys and girls, by men and women. Because if you're a man or a woman, you want to be teaching your children this stuff. You know? If you're a boy or a girl, you need to be understanding this stuff. Not what they taught you in school. That's garbage. That everything you learned in school needs to be undone. No matter how smart and clever you think you are, you're not. You're not. You've become aloof from everything that's real. And that sitcom Friends was a big player in moving you people into that aloofness. Because no matter what subject matter is discussed in Friends, they're aloof to it. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's not. They can't get stuck into something properly like you would as an adult, a grown-up. Yeah, so that's called programming. That's what that is, programming. So you don't want to be using the courts because they're the trustees, the underwriters of this system. You're going to pay. Otherwise, they go home and they can't feed themselves. Yep. Now, so the trustees are the courts, the banks, the judges, the schools, social services, everything that you contract with in this new system become the trustees in your trust because you haven't got a clue what's going on. Not a clue. And that's what you need to come to terms with, and then you can remedy that and learn this stuff. So, when you are dealing with these people, we can now assume that they're all foreign entities. They're all foreign corporations, okay? And they're operating not under bond, they're operating under lease revenue. So let's just have another look at another description of a certificate of participation. It says, what is a certificate of participation? A certificate of participation is a type of financing where an investor purchases a share of the lease revenues of a program rather than the bond being secured by those revenues. Certificates of participation are secured by lease revenues, lend and lease, public-private partnerships. That's what this grammar is, what these systems are in the private that they don't want you to know. This is the real mechanic of it. You only see the public presentation of what these systems are. This entire video is giving you the private. Okay. A certificate of participation can also be referred to as a participation certificate. So that's a PC. Breaking down certificates of participation. A lease financing agreement is used by a municipality or local government. So in America it's municipality, here we use local government, we use government. Same thing. Alright. It's used by municipality or local government to acquire real property. What do you think that property is? You. Your children. Because they're attached to a surname. The Christian heritage has been attached to a surname. Okay, that's the property they're acquiring. Each time you contract, each time you use your social security number, your national insurance number, you're contracting with this. Under the agreement, the local government makes regular payments over the annually renewable contract for the acquisition and use of the property. So the local government are making payments annually to renew this contract between them and the underwriters, the policy holders of this new system. And then they can acquire and make use of the property. You and everything you possess. Your house, your carriage, your Wi-Fi, your telly, your computers, your phone, everything that you possess once they attach themselves to this system and you, unbeknown to you, they can do what they want. Including, as we've already noted, because they're not regulated, decide you owe them money at whim. This whole system is going to support that. Okay. A lease financing contract is typically made available in the form of a certificate of participation. So we're back now to the essence of why it's important we understand that what the certificate of participation is, because the lease financing contract is evidenced in the form of a certificate of participation. Thus, when these creatures come a-calling for payment, to control you, to shut down your business, to make your social distance, to wear the mask, what do you want to see? You want to see the evidence of the contract they are enforcing. And that is evidenced in their presentation of the certificate of participation. Did you get that? So that's your council, that's your little locksmiths, that's your police, and any other two-bit twat that comes a knocking at your door or wherever on your person by assaulting you. They must show you the certificate of participation. Now, other things you want to have full disclosure of this contract and that you're a party to it by consent, having been given all the data, you require of these creatures, for full disclosure, you want the certificate of participation, the contract. You want to know who is the lease agreeer. Who's agreed to this lease on your back, your children's back, your property's back. Where is the lease financing contract? You want to see that. Okay? You need it. Who is being leased? This is what you need for full disclosure, people. For the contract to be enforceable. And the last is, what form of property is being leased? Did you get that? That is what you require of all these asswipes in order for full disclosure to be satisfied. That's the contract. We're not in common law, we're in their contract law. And their contract law that they claim to be enforcing, the policy, this gives you the private, the real guts of this policy that they're enforcing. And thus negates all their authority in an instant. Okay? Especially when you use it in the courts. Now, if they run to discharge, this is the game you play from now on. When you're dealing with these people, you want this disclosure, but you're also setting a fee schedule, immediate effect. And to be satisfied and discharge, as the court will insist you do because they don't want this out, you will only accept the discharge as remedy if there's a damages packet. Then you'll accept the discharge. Okay, bear in mind these people are running against you to enslave you with your property by deception. Don't be feeling sorry for these people. The men and women chosen to jump in with this, don't feel sorry for them. Make them pay. Make the courts pay, the trustees, the underwriters, the holders. Make them pay for what they've attempted to do on you by deception, by fraud. A criminal act. Impersonating the constabularies, a criminal act. Yeah? the criminal conversion of your name by presuming you are operating with a surname and a birth certificate. Criminal conversion. These are now the things you've got. They know this. They want discharge. They'll run away. Don't let them run away. You want to be satisfied for discharge. You want damages. Because they've attempted to injure you. And in that period of time you've had to spend wasting time with them, you want damages for your time. You don't have to prove it in paperwork what you've lost, what you haven't lost. You want damages for the insult, for the encroachments, for the trespass, for the burden they've attempted to place on you to limit your capacity. We're using all their own terms here. This is the private. This is the guts. This is what you need. Okay? This is what you need. So to the Venetian, again, you don't need to accept any decisions made by whomever in this legal system until they've presented this data for full disclosure. Now, you see, when they gain trustee position in this trust, you waiver your rights in the trust. Now, the contract that they're pushing is basically that you've been indebted to the UK government, the United States government, the Australian government, the New Zealand government, the Canadian government, and across Europe, any government now, because they're all pushing this system. So you've been indebted by force and deception as a trespass into the debt of the UK government, your respective government. Okay? The fact this credit system has no restrictions means they can declare you all by definition of them saying so. And this system will enforce that. This is because the credit system is not under a bond. So by moving the bond, but pretending to be a bond, and into this lease revenue system, the Securities and Exchange Commission cannot restrict this, the behaviour of this platform. This is what Trump's putting in. This is what he's put in. He's done it. He's emancipated them. He's done it. He's done it. The Abraham Accords. He's done it. See what's going on now, just to divide the American population so soundly, everybody on each side stops listening to anything that's coming from the other. That's how civil wars begin. You have to get that position in order. Entrenched absolutism in what you believe is the final requirement for civil war. Divided, you'll be conquered. End of. That goes for every nation, which is what they're trying to do now with all of us. That's why they've put immigrants everywhere. That gives the division. It creates the division. It enforces the division. You've got Catholic Protestant dividing the West. How pathetic, how childish, when both your institutions are so far up the no-high platform's ass, you're lucky to see the toe, the big toe sticking out. Grow up. Grow up and get up. Stop acting like you've no power here. This is your power now, the private. This is where we all need to start looking, people. Forget the public, the private. What's the private game going on there? For your Soros, for your gays. Because they're the people, that the holders of these lease revenues, especially when they tie into this new medical dictatorship. Okay. Now, a certificate of participation is a debt instrument. A debt instrument. That's what it is. You become a taxable slave the minute you jump into this. Taxable slave. Okay? Now, listen to this. A certificate of participation is a tax-exempt lease financing agreement. The system's tax-exempt. You become a taxable slave. Getting it? Up go the profits, down comes the shit. Mafia. That's what mafia's all about. That's your Masonic, it's your Jesuit, it's your mafia. What? I mean, how do you think mafia gets itself into mainstream? By using all the regalia that the mainstream uses and pretending to be it. A certificate of participation is a tax-exempt lease financing agreement that is sold to investors as securities resembling bonds, as we've already stated. Yeah. So now, if you followed Patrick Devine's work, this is where you'll start to realise that the 1099 in this new system doesn't work. Because the Securities and Exchange Commission hasn't got the power, the authority. So, Patrick Devine, was he not just presenting the old way out as the new comes in? Because it doesn't work. You're chasing rainbows. Well, the rainbows over here in the no-hide, but you are chasing the wind. If you follow Patrick Devine, if this entire new system doesn't operate under the SEC. Come on, let's do some thinking. Then let's do some acting. This is where it's at. All you guys, you rebels, you scousers, all of you. This is the grammar you need. Personally, as a man, which is, again, is what you need to learn if you're going to use Magna Carta, Bill of Rights, you've got to be a man. You're always a cut-off point. It's not a person, it's man. They call themselves barons. They're just men with title. So there is person in there, but it's a higher person. Man's beyond all that. Use Constitution, common law, you've got to be a man. You've got to use the right language, you've got to use the right communication. Otherwise, they'll have you. As the guy in Bristol found. Now, just to end this. Bonds are subject to taxes. Cops are not. But in this lien against your trust, you are. Taxable, finable, bummable, prisonable. So think again about the Lend-Lease programme, because this is where it comes from. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how the central banks and the families that control them, the Aldo Brandini, Orsini, Palafacini, etc., etc. This is how the Bar Association becomes your trustees and not the constitutional crown. With that load of diatribe, and my apologies if I got rather excited, but if you thought I got excited, you want to get to the guy that sourced this for me, he does get excited. I'll put a link to his channel at the bottom of this video. Happy Saturday. Till the next time.